Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Salty Nerd Podcast covers House of the Dragon. This is the final episode. This is the finale of the season, which I know got leaked. Stop laughing at me, Charles. Which I know got leaked, and it kind of ruined the surprise for most people. I don't know. I didn't watch it, though. We waited until Sunday night to watch it like we're supposed to. We're good little nerds. And now we're here to talk about it. So welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. Let me introduce my panel of nerds. Pop them up there. Matt Vader. What's up, dude? How you doing, man?
What is this leak? I didn't really.
The episode dropped on like Wednesday.
On
HBO? No, not on HBO. So basically, HBO has distribution partners internationally, or Warner Brothers, and so they send out copies so that, like, the foreign territories can get them. And apparently, one of those third parties accidentally leaked it, and it got on the internet and on the high seas and all that stuff. And so.
Accidentally.
It wasn't a thing for me, so
yeah,
that's too bad.
We got a warning text message from Cadis, and he's like, "Hey, just watch out for spoilers online because the episode dropped." And I was like, "Oh, well, man,
that was for her mostly."
Speaking of her, Jude is here.
Yeah.
What's up, Jude? Hello. And are you still in Iceland, Charles?
I am.
All right, welcome. You finally figured out your webcam.
Yeah. Yes, I did. It was some default setting that I had to fix, but yeah.
Gotcha. Right on. Good to have you.
Nice sweater.
Thank you.
The keyword there is default setting. It should be like the push of a button. It's not complicated.
That's literally what it was. It was the push of the button.
Mm-hmm.
And I fixed it.
If you can't tell, it's sweater weather. Sweater weather for us nerds over here. We're in hoodies. That is a sexy sweater, though, Charles. I gotta say, God damn.
It's nice.
You look like an Icelandic fisherman.
You do.
Well, I mean, we're near the coast. So.
Something seems a little off, but yeah, he does look pretty good.
No, he's fine. He just needs a white wig. No, that'll finish the.
I need the grim cap. That's what
you need to go to the local
hardware store.
Hardware store, buy a mop. It works really good. I've proven the concept. It looks great. You cannot tell the difference.
Let me introduce Kadish real quick.
Just don't put it in the washing machine. It'll blow up.
Kadish is also here. What's up, man?
So I just want to let everyone watching know that Vader will be accepting super chats for views of his feet throughout the stream. And the more super chats we get, maybe he'll take off a sock, actually show us the toes.
I don't know if I can handle
Let
it.
out your inner Laris. Enjoy the feet of fate.
Allison wasn't even in this episode, was she?
No.
Not at all. No. This is hard Targaryen in this episode. Anyway, so we're going to be spoiling the crap out of it. If you haven't watched it, of course, you should go back and watch it. But this episode is episode 10, The Black Queen. It's basically the reaction of Rhaenyra's family to the news that Viserys has died, and the aftermath of that. Show Vader feet. Hashtag. You guys are so gross. With nail polish. Look at that. We got people asking for nail polish too. That's $50 minimum. All right, so the scene opens up with Rhaenyra talking with Luke, who is feeling a little bit of an imposter syndrome. He has inherited the high seas from his grandfather. And he's like, I'm not ready for it. I can't do it. And she gives him a pep talk, and it's all nice and lovely, and everybody's happy for a minute. What do you guys think about this opening part right here with Luke saying he's not worthy? He gets seasick. He can't run the seas.
He's not wrong. I mean, he is an imposter. Let's just say what it is. I think another thing too. I love the contrast they have between Rhaenyra's mothering style and Alicent's mothering style. Like, Rhaenyra is actually a very good mother to her kids. She's very attentive. Obviously, she's stern when she needs to be, but it's just she didn't try to weaponize her children against, like, hey, this could happen if this. Obviously, she wanted to protect them against their true paternal side, but I feel that it again shows how she is dealing. Like, she's like, hey, this is what you need to do, but she's not like grabbing him by the throat or the chin and saying, like, you have to do this or you're gonna die, like Alicent was doing. So I like that opening scene.
It also revealed kind of how the kids view her, where he says, like, I'm not perfect like you.
That was
true,
they're mama boys.
Jude, you had a reaction to when he said that, right? You were like, oh, because we watched this together.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, you were a little drunk.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, the whole night was a blur for her.
Anyway, all right. Well, that's it for that then. Yeah, it was nice to see. Let's see. Princess Renice shows up in her badass dragon armor and announces that the king is dead, and we get the reaction of Daemon, who immediately is like, "Let's go to war." Like he doesn't.
They killed my brother.
They killed him. They had to have killed him. We just talked to him yesterday. Like he's like pissed already. And go ahead, Jude.
Like I was just gonna say, like you didn't just see him and. Like, I knew he was about to die, but as soon as he hears the king is dead, he's like, they murdered him.
Well, they kind of did. Had them all hopped up on Milk of the Poppy.
I don't know. I think that... Go ahead, Charles.
You know, the thing, too, is she left out the part where I could have ended this war, like, right then. I could have ended this war, but I decided not to because I'm,
Well, Charles, she had to go home and find her husband first to talk about it.
Well, what she said
to see whose side that they were going to fight on.
What she said was she was like, I could have stopped it, or I could have ended this war right now, but it was not my place to start a war, something along those lines. Like, it's not my place to do what I could have done. And I'm like, it totally was your place.
It totally was your place. This is your family. And here's another thing, too. Another thing we want to remember is that when Rhaenyra is getting this double blow of, okay, your dad's dead, and your younger half rapist brother has stolen your birthright. And then that actually starts triggering some early cramps, like early labor for her, actually. Because she's probably she looks like she's like 7-8 months at this point. So that's kind of boom, 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 boom. She's dealing with all that. She's handling a lot better than most people would have. I'll give her that much, But yeah, and what happens, the sad thing is that as they're, she's talking about, as she's hearing this and processing this, she feels at her belly, under her dress, and it comes away with blood. So that's never a good sign.
Yeah. So that's a perfect segue for another another tragic, like birthing thing. I don't know what is this show has against like fetuses.
Dude, I'm over this. I'm over the baby births.
Like, how many people are gonna die in this show because of babies? Like, it's terrible.
This show
back to life.
They stopped showing a full frontal, D flopping around and gave us angry baby births. It's ridiculous.
It was so sad though. I'm watching it. So the stress of the situation causes her to go into early labor, and like there's a good segment of the show where she's just like in labor by herself. She doesn't want any help from anybody, and the baby comes out and it's stillborn. It's dead. It's strangled by its umbilical cord. I think that's kind of what they were hinting at because you could see it wrapped around its neck. But either way, I was just like, my God, man, this show hates babies, like, for some reason. It's crazy.
I don't think this baby had a chance because I saw something online last night that said when the baby was born in the book, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, they said it was like it had a hole in its chest and it had a little dragon tail and scales and stuff. It was like this thing wasn't ever meant to survive. But
unreliable narrators.
I don't know how it all played into the book line and everything, but they changed it up.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I know, right?
Appreciate it. Another thing too is this is another, like, this is one thing I really love about the show, how they've expanded upon the Valyrian, not Valerion like the family, but Valyrian and Targaryen lore. Like they showed again how while Rhaenyra is having, is birthing, Syrax is feeling this. So it's like they're sharing emotions at this point. Syrax is like roaring and kind of feeling the emotions that she's feeling, her pain, just like that. And they kind of, I love how they're kind of giving this, like, showing how certain things in Fire and Blood were kind of embellished by unreliable narrators, because she was just saying, like, get out, get out, get out. And in the Fire and Blood, they're saying, like, she's like, little monster, get out, get out. And they kind of just got a little, hyperbole, got a little hyperbole behind kind of some of the descriptions, particularly like this birth, like Rhaenyra's in a black rage and whatnot. So I thought that I loved how they kind of pared things down and didn't make it as histrionic as it could have been in this reference.
So real quick, while Rhaenyra is in her labor, Daemon takes it upon himself to gather their council and sit around the war table and start planning a war which he has been planning for like 20 years at this point. Like this dude knows exactly the moves he's gonna make.
He's like, finally.
He's like, finally, you're gonna go here, you're gonna go there, you're gonna go to the Riverlands.
You're gonna kill that guy.
We're going to Storm's End. Like,
let's talk about this table for a second.
Yeah, let's talk about the table.
Because we got to finally see the table and its full splendor.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting because in the previous show, Game of Thrones, they have that same exact table, but they never light it up. It's always just in this dark little cavern, like council room. And I feel like this show is kind of like subtly one-upping the previous show. They're just like, we're gonna show you what this thing is supposed to look like under the right, under the right leadership and a true Targaryen sitting on the throne and stuff like that. And I just thought super freaking cool, super cool.
Daenerys didn't know how to light it.
No, she didn't.
In the lore, Aegon Aegon the Conqueror commissioned that table. That was his table where he did all of his war planning on, and it's kind of like part and parcel of Dragonstone. It's like, like that's like part of like the mythos of Dragonstone. And so everyone who is in the Dragonstone seat uses that table at some point or another. And I think that was the first time since Aegon's time that it was used to plan like a battle, which is why you see it lit up like that.
Yeah, that was cool. Exactly. Yeah, he hit the nail on the head. It was Aegon the Conqueror got it made, and yeah, I felt that it was great to kind of see this because it kind of I know a lot of people have, and understandably so, been complaining that the show feels smaller in scale because it's just focused on the Targaryen. This expands it to be like, here's what's at stake. Obviously, this is a dynastic feud. This is technically at its core, it's a family feud. But when you expand it, this is like freaking World War. This is the Great War. This is World War II. It's a civil war, but it's also World War II.
What was also really interesting around like the small council battle planning was that they were talking about how they don't have the the manpower to fight the Greens, but then someone makes the point. It's like focusing on manpower is the wrong thing. We need to focus on dragons. And they start listing off like all the dragons they have. And those are like the WMDs of the time. Yeah. So it's like we have 14 dragons to their 3 or like whatever. Yeah. And it was a very interesting kind of scene where they started talking about the strategic importance of their dragons and just how many that Daemon has kind of in the wings there. And
they're also comparing sizes too. They're like, like we have these dragons, but they're
not just size, the ones that have actually been ridden and have battle experience.
Yeah. Exactly. And really that's only Vhagar at this point.
Well, no. On their side, I think Vhagar, but when it comes to the other
side, Smoke has battle experience. So does Straxes.
Yeah, you're right.
Meraxes, Melise, the Red Queen, Rhaenys's mount. Also, Vermithor, who we saw in this episode.
That was awesome.
Yeah, because Vermithor was Jaehaerys's mount, Jaehaerys the Conciliator, and he hasn't been ridden since Jaehaerys died.
And it looked like Daemon was imprinting on her.
Yeah. Well, I think Daemon was just maybe getting him used to people again, because Daemon already has Caraxes, so he's not going to take another dragon. So it's just getting him used to people and kind of one exposition. Instead of sex position, we got dragon position, where we kind of just see, hey, let's see the dragons again. This is the dragon.
I'm here for it. And Charles, correct me if I'm wrong, but Vermithor is the second largest dragon in existence.
Yes.
Okay.
He's second only to Vhagar.
They need a something that they can go up against Vermithor with.
So hold on. Go ahead, V.
I said they needed something that they could put up against Vhagar, and I think Daemon is very aware of this, because that thing is a battleship. There's nothing that can touch Vhagar right now. And, so I think Daemon was like, okay, well, I guess I better go summon our battleship, because I hope he's not too pissed off, so he goes in there with his singing and his torch, and it was like a cool scene. Yeah, he does. That was I was impressed. I think that was probably my favorite scene of this episode. Almost, it was really, really neat. Yeah.
I love seeing the dragons.
Yeah, it was cool seeing. I love seeing people who know how to interact with dragons, like just kind of just fearlessly walking into that situation and being like, I know what to do. I know how to handle it. Or talking High Valyrian. Like I just that I don't know, that vibe that we get from those kinds of scenes are always really cool to me. Real quick, I need to backtrack just a little bit because I want to mention this part. I feel like it's more important than the show might have suggested. But Jace is told by his mother not to let Daemon do anything without her. So he goes down there and tries to put his foot down, and Daemon's like, young buck, like, just chill for a second. Let me go show you what true loyalty looks like. And he takes the 2 Kingsguards that are still there on Dragonstone. He takes them out to the field or whatever, and he's like, all right, listen, you guys gave an oath to the king. The king is dead. His heir is here on Dragonstone, but there's also another king in King's Landing, so choose your side and choose it wisely. And then his dragon comes over the freaking cliff, and he's like, if you do it now, you'll have a clean death. If you don't and you betray us, you'll die screaming. And it was just a really cool scene, and I love that he's like, he's showing Jace, like, hey, bro, this is how shit gets done. Let me show you what it's really like.
I thought it was kind of an odd thing because normally, like, you'd want to get someone's like true feelings before you threaten them with death.
That's true.
Yeah. So I'm curious, is there anything in the books about like any kind of betrayal happening from the Kingsguard? Is that something that we have to worry about?
So there's something with Eric and Arik that plays out. But for the most part, the Kingsguard is kind of split because like there's 7 of them. And at this point, the former Lord Commander, Westerling, has basically, thrown in his cloak. So he's no longer part of it. So you now have 3 Kingsguard with the greens and 3 with the blacks. And so like the Kingsguard is evenly split at this
I thought there
point.
was more of those than that. I didn't know that.
No, there's only 7. There's always 7 Kingsguard. So there's still a position left to fill on that. But basically, in addition to the House of the Dragon being split, the Kingsguard is now split as well. So
okay. Interesting.
That's a perfect segue, Alex, in terms of Kingsguard.
It is? Take it away. What happens next? I was going to mention the funeral for the baby because I was telling my wife about this scene.
Pretty important scene.
Yeah, it's a very important scene. I was telling my wife about it, and she's like, that is just a bunch of horse shit. And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, there's no way that lady is going to give birth and in the same day wrap her baby up in a funeral cloth, take it out to the altar, do the funeral, and then hop on a dragon and go like start negotiating war tactics with people. She's like, no.
She's a Targaryen. Fire and blood.
But before that, though, like the funeral scene was good, but there's what happened during the funeral. Actually,
Sorry, Vader. Go ahead.
I didn't take it as that all happened on the same day within hours of each other. It was like maybe the same weekend. Because
it's one hell of a weekend.
Yeah, but at the same time, you also got to remember at the very first her first kid, she popped it out and picked it up and carried that up to the top of the tower.
She needed help. She needed help from what's her face though.
So she's pretty tough after for giving a lot of bursts. But no, I didn't feel like that was the exact same day. I thought it was next day, maybe 2 days later. I don't know.
To me, it seemed like it happened all on the same day. The sun never set. They never showed like a night scene to kind of transition.
They've been a little weird with their time jumps this whole series.
Fair enough.
So I don't know.
Also, I believe it's Sir Arik from the
Eric.
Kingsguard.
It was Eric, actually.
It was Eric. Okay,
Yeah.
so Sir Eric shows up with Viserys' crown.
Yeah.
And he basically defects to the blacks and gives Rhaenyra her crown. And during the funeral, Daemon crowns Rhaenyra as Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. And so, like, you had this big pageantry with Aegon getting crowned king, and then it's a very small ceremony for Rhaenyra.
With the backdrop of her burning baby, dude. What the hell?
No, God. Here's an interesting thing about that crown. That actually was Jaehaerys' crown as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And and Aegon got Aegon the Conqueror's crown, which was like iron. It was made from iron or Valyrian steel or something like that. So,
but it was a really cool scene, though. I liked the the Kingsguard shows up and pulls the pulls the crown out of his satchel and hands it to the. It was just a really cool scene. I had fun with it. Let's see.
Yeah, the chat kind of makes a point too, as far as the whole Rhaenyra thing. These are fictional characters in a fantasy world, so they ride dragons. So, and we're wondering if they can give birth, and we'll have a funeral that afternoon. So,
yeah, I saw that too.
Getting a lot of attention, Charles.
Oh my God, people are just hot and bothered by Charles today. What the heck?
This is a good look, my friend.
Yeah, go for it, man. Get it. All right. So Rhaenyra takes her crown and walks over to the war table, and they have a discussion about their I don't know, assets versus their liabilities, who's on their side, where they're going to send people. And Rhaenyra seems to be the only one in the room that does not want to go into all-out war. She seems to be standing her ground and trying to just negotiate her way out of this, which I thought was it's a good character moment, but I feel like she would have reacted a little bit differently to me. I don't know. She's always been a little bit of a hothead and just kind of been like on top of her shit. And for her to be so reserved about all this was very surprising to me. What do you guys think about that?
I think that, so we're coming off an episode where her and Alicent kind of mended some fences, and she's still trying to, like, she knows what war would mean for the realm, and she's trying to preserve her father's peace and honor his memory by trying to figure out, are there alternatives at this point? Because every man in the room is like, let's go to war. And she's like, well, slow your roll. Let's see, like, if we can do a diplomatic solution first and foremost.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that's like the smart thing to do in that situation. And Rhaenys sees this as well, which is one of the reasons why Rhaenys kind of like falls on the sides of Rhaenyra in this conflict, because she's the only one in the room who's practicing restraint and wisdom at this point. So I thought that it was kind of interesting to see her kind of come in and basically put Daemon in his place and temper the warlike nature of all the other lords.
And another thing too is even just when she entered the room, she's like flanked by guards, and she's kind of like, even then she's like, oh, okay, you guys can hold back. Come all the way there. There was just a nice little subtle toss where she's still kind of getting used to the fact, holy crap, I'm actually queen now, but I don't need this, like, I don't need an entourage everywhere I go.
Not in her living room. So.
But even just with that, you hit the nail on the head. She's probably in her mind thinking of what her father told her in the pilot episode about Aegon the Conqueror's dream and the dream he had. One, she doesn't want to rule over Ash and Bone, a kingdom of that, but she realizes for whatever is north of the wall, the kingdom needs to be united. They never knew when it was coming. Obviously, we know, but she didn't know when it was coming, but she needs a united kingdom for that, to stand against that. Yeah.
And there's a couple people in the chat. There's a little bit of a war going on. Some people say they should have attacked right away, and then there's other people who are like, she's doing the responsible thing. She's being a good ruler. So there's two different ways you could go about this, but Rhaenyra chose the way of peace until.
I also want to point out real quick before we move on that the three houses that they need in order to win this war are Stark, Arryn, and Baratheon, who just happen to be the three houses that destroy ultimately the House Targaryen. They're the ones behind Robert's rebellion, right before the original Game of Thrones story. So I thought it was kind of interesting that so much hinges on those three houses for both the Greens and the Blacks, and ultimately those are the three houses that unite to destroy the House of the Dragon. So,
and of course, a reminder is that these are, aside from just, these are the great houses too. These are not just like regular great, like lords. These are, like, for instance, obviously House Stark, Lord Paramount of the North, Warden of the North. House Arryn, obviously the great house in the Vale, and also Warden of the East. And the Stormlands has always been a very, very important ally to the Targaryen cause, because the first Baratheon, Orys Baratheon, rumored half-brother of Aegon the Conqueror, they were always close, and there's always blood. There's intermingled blood, and also Rhaenys, she's half Baratheon on her mother's side.
And also House Valerian's allegiances are kind of up in the air at this point as well, even though Rhaenys came and warned them It turns out that the patriarch of House Valerian is still alive, and they're not sure what side he's going to fall onto.
Yeah,
and he has the greatest navy in Westeros next to the Lannisters. So.
He's such a badass.
Yeah, I thought I was actually a little confused about how they brought him back in, because last I remembered he had disappeared and was reported like sick or dead on the other side of the planet, and now all of a sudden he shows up in Dragonstone.
He was grievously injured, and they didn't think he was going to make it.
But
he was injured in the Stepstones, and when they got the note, he was on a ship going back to Driftmark, and that's when all like the drama about his succession happened. He made it to Driftmark, recovered, and then started his way back down to Dragonstone to meet up with, I guess, his wife or something like that. And so, like, when he got there, he was still recovering from his wound. But they mentioned at the beginning of the episode that he was on his way there. So
I guess I missed it.
Yeah, they're not very good at explaining.
Yeah, I was going to say, the
traveling.
If there's one thing I don't like about this show, it's that they really kind of like fast forward to skip over things like that, at least that I can see that are kind of important for. I guess they're not really that important, but it would be nice to have a few of those filled in about who gets where.
They're definitely leaning on the audience to kind of just pick up on these things and just go along with it. Like they don't want to spend time explaining exactly how people are traveling from point A to point B. So they're just kind of like, well, you guys can figure it out. I guess. Yeah.
I think also he had blood fever. So the injury he got caused the blood fever, and that's what his malady was. And I guess he's come on the other side of that.
He essentially had like a infection, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So the next scene, there's a ship on the coast of Dragonstone, and it is Otto Hightower, and this dude has balls of Valyrian steel to walk up on this house and start talking mad shit to the queen with two dragons behind them. And I'm like, this dude's nuts. Like, he's straight up calling him out. Like, hey, you have no claim to the throne. My grandson, is it a grandson? Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my grandson has Aegon's name, Aegon's sword, Aegon's crowd. You know, he's got everything. You have nothing. You have nothing but a whisper from the old king.
A note about that.
Hold on a second.
Hold on. Yeah, Vader, go ahead.
You say he's got balls of stone and everything, and that's true, he does. But he's also under the protection of the whole envoy thing, right? So if you're an envoy, you're protected. You're not supposed to be attacked, and if you are, then you war. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a traitor. He's a traitor to the crown. That's a death sentence right there.
I don't know if it matters.
So here's another thing too. What Otto said when he said he has the Conqueror's name, he wears the Conqueror's crown, he has the Conqueror's sword. He was christened in front of God and men. He has every air of legitimacy. That whole passage was literally lifted from Fire and Blood in terms of the description of when just the back and forth between like when they're talking about the advantages and disadvantages between the blacks and the greens.
What's also funny is this is an exact mirror of the same scene from episode 3. And down to the fact that when Rhaenyra shows up, she's the one who kind of diffuses the situation. And it was very interesting to kind of see this like scene play out where Daemon's ready to throw down, Otto's ready to throw down, and then Rhaenyra comes in and like mediates the whole thing. And in fact, when she gets that message from Alicent, and she actually pauses for a minute to think like, okay, maybe I should consider these terms. It was a very interesting scene.
Yeah.
And adding back to that, it's funny. It's great that that's true, Matt. I didn't even think about that at first. That's true. It's like literally the same scene almost. But that was something that was kind of an issue that I had. That was kind of an issue I had in terms of. It was good to see. Don't get me wrong. It was good to see Rhaenyra finally on Dragonback again. We haven't seen her since she was a kid. But that was a note that they actually even put in Fire and Blood, where she was like, I'm not going to be able to ride dragons for a little bit because I just gave birth. So that was, I can see a little bit of your, Alex, your wife's issue about that. But I did, I think, and just to note, just the note that she gave her, it wasn't even really a note. It was when in the pilot episode when young Rhaenyra and young Alicent were kind of going over some history lesson. Rhaenyra tore a page out of a book and gave it to Alicent, and that's essentially what Otto gave back to her. And that was a very emotionally manipulative play with Alicent. But I mean, at the same time,
it worked.
Once again, she's the one who's keeping the peace because she's just like, we're not going to kill each other, guys. Come on, relax.
Yeah, and both Alicent and Rhaenyra are the only two people who are trying to limit the amount of murder going on. Because Otto's like, let's go kill them all, and we'll win this, and then it'll mean less bloodshed in the end. Yeah. And Alicent's like, no, I'm not doing that. Viserys would roll over in his grave, and he didn't want that. But she's under the delusion that he wanted Aegon to inherit the throne. And juxtapose that with Rhaenyra, who's also like, we're not immediately going to war. We could squash this in one fell swoop, but we're not going to. And ultimately, these decisions lead to so much worse shit about to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, at this point, no blood's been shed. And so it's all just like a battle of egos and positioning, and it's all political. But the minute that, bloodshed and someone dies, it gets real. So,
yeah. Well, Lord Breezebury, but no one cares, I guess.
Yeah.
He was murdered by his own people, though.
Yeah.
That's right.
So real quick, the sea snake enters the chat during this scene. And it was funny, like when I was watching this scene, like he shows up, he's kind of still hobbled. He's still recovering. He's still recovering from his injuries. Oh my God, is there more people hitting on Charles?
Yes.
He will lock me in a closet and ask me to pray to God. My goodness, man.
Dude,
the sweater.
Get that sweater in every color.
Sweater with
Wow.
Shame.
My God. Shame. Charles, can you?
A little bit. I think I can.
Anyway. I gotta try and bring this back to the conversation.
I mean, if it's not Vader's feet, it's Charles's sweater. Everyone in our chat is horny as hell.
That's the type of people we attract, I guess. So Lord Corlys Velaryon, dude, when he showed up, and he almost had a scene very similar to like the king. When on that last episode where he like walks into the throne room and he's like, I'm here now, I'm the man of the house, and like Corlys walks in, and I swear that dude has such an air of respect around him. Like people are like, oh shit, he's here, like that's the Snee Snake, that's the dude, he's the man we need. And he kind of like lays down the law for everybody. He's like calling people out on their terrible plans, and he's like educating Rhaenyra on the true nature of the war and what they could do and what they can't do. And I really like that scene. I like how he kind of walked in, he just kind of like stuck his flag in that room, and everybody was listening for a minute. I really liked that. It was cool.
But he also put out an important note that had been kind of an ongoing background storyline. He said, I got the stepstones under control now. Now there's somebody in place to keep it managed, so we can use that as a blockade. Like he's coming up with good, like non-violent plans. Like we can cut off King's Landing in terms of their shipping supply, because that's one of the big things with King's Landing is like, aside from being the capital, obviously a lot of shipping and merchant stuff goes through, the Blackwater Bay. So he's just thinking more strategically and smarter than a lot of these other people that we've seen more stuff with.
The chat is asking for feet pics already. Oh my God.
Vader's feet. No
Super chats, guys. Super chats.
So we kind of skipped over the scene where Corlys finally has a talk with Rhaenys.
Oh yeah.
And he kind of admits that, like, he was wrong to pursue the Iron Throne and his own ambition, and he just wants nothing to do with it anymore. And Rhaenys is like, oh, it's too late for that.
Yeah.
You have to pick a side now. And so, like, when he does come walking into that small council meeting like a boss, it's very, very impactful, I think. But also, I don't know if this is a spoiler or not, but Corlys becomes Rhaenyra's hand eventually, like the hand of the queen.
Okay.
Yeah. Spoiler. Jerk.
It's not a spoiler.
It isn't me this time.
It is a spoiler.
And I think, one of the ways that Rhaenys kind of gets Corlys to kind of let go of, because initially he's kind of not Team Rhaenyra. He's kind of like, that girl ruins everything she touches. But Rhaenys is just like, dude, think of your grandkids.
Yeah.
But with Corlys in her corner now, though, she now has all the ships and all the dragons. She just doesn't have the lords and the men. So it's kind of an interesting setup. But I really liked the reintroduction of Corlys Velaryon and how he just kind of comes in and plants his flag. I thought it was really cool.
All right. The next scene. Rhaenyra sends her children in one of the most boneheaded moves ever out alone on their tiny little dragons to go and try and convince people. Like her little 9-year-old kid, like, here, take a message from me to this random lord on your tiny little baby dragon, and like, good luck. I hope you get back safe.
Not quite 14, that simple.
Luke's 14. Luke's 14.
I was just immediately, I'm just like, that he's too young to be taking on this kind of stuff. Like, send Daemon or somebody who actually has some freaking oomph behind him.
What's
here's the thing,
Daemon.
Go on.
In the book, Alex. So Daemon goes to the Riverlands because that's like the biggest army they have access to and the most likely to come to their side.
Okay.
And then they send Jace up north to the Arryn and Winterfell because he's like, the heir to the throne. And so like they want to honor them with that. And because the Stormlands are so close to Dragonstone, it was viewed as the least risky and least difficult one. So like they sent, the youngest heir there to basically impress upon them, like, like we're sending you royalty in order to entreat with you. So like, that's like a big honor. And even though it's the youngest one, it was viewed as like the least dangerous mission.
Second oldest.
The second oldest. So and plus like the at this point Rhaenyra is supposedly like tight with the Baratheons, so she didn't think it was going to be a issue to send her second youngest there.
So actually, she was tight with Boromond, but Boros is a different situation.
Quick question. Sorry, I'm just trying to get some clarification here. Do you guys remember in one of the earlier episodes, I think it might have been episode 2 or 3, where that kid who was being made fun of killed the other guy? Which one of those ways was a Baratheon? Was it the guy who was being a dick?
I was actually
it was the one who died.
Okay.
So I was actually wrong about that. Neither of them were Baratheons. It was Bracken and Blackwood.
Oh,
those are 2 Riverland houses. I was completely wrong. I thought it was a Baratheon. I misread the.
Okay. Never mind. Yeah. Moving on then. So anyway, I kind of like tilt my head a little bit at that. Like I understand now, Kadish, you make some sense here. Like that's the easiest among the trips that they had to make. But still, I'm like, the kid, he's too young to be doing that.
In hindsight, it should have been Rhaenys who went, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because she's half Baratheon, that's her cousin.
Yeah,
right.
And I know they were trying to make an impression with the dragons, but I'm like, if it's close enough where you feel comfortable sending a kid to go do it, like then just send somebody.
It wasn't an impression though; it was a matter of speed. Like the dragons could get there faster than ships or anything like that, so they wanted to get there fast, and so dragon riders were the only ones who could go out and do all this stuff, and it just so happens the dragon riders were the royalty. So
and I guess I've been saying Cregan Stark wrong for like years now. I kept saying Cregan Stark because that's right now he's Lord of Winterfell is Cregan Stark, and then
apparently he's young too. Like I was thinking of like the older guy who swore to fealty to Rhaenyra in the first episode, but I guess he's dead, and there's like a new Stark in town, and he's going to be the one to.
Just a new Stark in town.
The need is a new Stark around.
But it was really neat to get to see Storm's End finally.
Yeah,
so never saw that.
Perfect segue. Yeah. So we get to see Storm's End. He lands.
Real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
Real quick, just before we get in there, one of the reasons why it's good that Jace is going to both the North and the Vale is because. They made an oath to her, and also the Vale, like Emma Target, whatever her name is, Emma Targaryen, her mother was actually half Arryn, so that's like her family up there. So that's actually also a safer bet to go too.
See, I thought she was a Targaryen. Wasn't Queen Emma? She's a Targaryen, but she's half.
She's half Arryn on I think either her mother or father's side. I'm not sure which.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. And the Starks have lineage with the Arryns as well too, with the mother from the last show. Wasn't she a Tully or an Aaron?
No,
she was a Tully.
She was a Tully.
Oh, her sister.
Her sister was an Aaron. I
Okay.
don't know about this generation of Stark.
Her sister was an Aaron through marriage, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know,
So John Aaron, who died before the season began,
Mhm.
he was okay.
he
Gotcha.
married Lisa.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. All right, let's talk about Storm's End. I feel like you guys have a lot to say about this whole scene. It was really cool. I loved we got big bad Aemond there already putting his flag in the sand.
Always nice to see him.
Always nice to see that guy. Friggin' what a stud.
Yeah.
Literally putting his flag.
Literally.
Yeah.
You know, the thing is, I thought that when we saw, and that was such, I mean, just from a storytelling perspective and just a visual perspective, the minute you saw the silhouette of Vhagar, you're just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. That thing is so huge. Like it's up, like behind the wall of this castle. What are you doing with these feet picks, man? Jesus Christ.
Oh my God.
You see the dragon like kind of like yawn, like rise up and stretch. It's like, it's so freaking huge. It's crazy. I love that stuff. I nerd out so much when I see these freaking giant ass dragons. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Super Jabber feet picks. You guys are insane. All right. I don't have anything else to say. What do you guys got to say about this? Keep it going. Keep it going.
Well, how far do we want to go in the scene?
This is pretty much until he leaves, and then we'll talk about that final scene.
Okay, cool. So this was actually pretty book accurate in many ways. Aemon just wasn't as crude as he was.
Oh, we lost Charles.
Oh no, Charles.
But he's still pretty salty. Wait.
You're good. You're good. You're back.
You're coming back.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. You see me now? Okay. Cool.
Yep.
Basically, we finally saw the sapphire eye. That was awesome. That was really cool.
An eye for an eye. He's like, give me your eye, bitch.
And then the Rogar, and I think this was, Boros Baratheon, and he basically is kind of clearly belligerent. He doesn't care about what his dad swore to. I liked how he was presented. Also, he's illiterate. They pretty much showed that.
Yeah.
But he was, I can see where it's like, aside from the fact that Rhaenyra didn't really think that through as much because, like, Boros was an unknown quandary because, like, obviously Boromond was cool, but, like, you don't know what the son's going to do. And so they didn't really have anything to offer. They're just like, hey, remember your oath that your dad did. So I'd say in that regards, that was probably not a smart play to not have something to entreaty him with.
Mm-hmm.
But Aemon's there.
And that's the real difference between Otto and Rhaenyra, is that Otto understood, like, oh, if we offer a marriage proposal because he's got 4 daughters, you know, that is leverage. And Rhaenyra's like, she took the Stark route where she's like, oh, he gave his word, his vow, so he owes us his allegiance.
Yeah. And what's his face? And Boros doesn't take too kindly to that. He's just like, what? We're not just some, he says something like, we're not just some dog that you can just.
I got to say, the actor who played Boros looks so much like the guy who played Robert in the first season. They did a good job casting him. I think it's also kind of fun to point out that in the books, they talk about how Aemon takes a sapphire and puts it in his eye socket, and he gets the nickname Aemon Blue Eye whenever he shows that thing off. But it's kind of funny because people who don't know the book, when he revealed that, people are like, what happened to his eye? Is it magic? What happened there?
Yeah. So, and that's the thing. And then Aemon's kind of like, when basically Luke's negotiation doesn't go well, and he basically sends him on his way, that's when Aemon starts kind of antagonizing and provoking him. And that becomes,
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing, though. I mean, you guys are all giving Rhaenyra shit for, sending her kids and stuff down there. But like we said earlier, they were under a flag of the envoy and you're not supposed to touch these people.
Yeah.
And he was fine until asshole with one eye decided to go be the bully uncle or whatever he is to this kid.
He had some unfinished business.
If he hadn't been there, everything would have been fine.
Of course, yeah.
It's also important to point out that Aemon is only 2 years older than
it's really
Yeah,
strange.
he was
right?
like 16, 17. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a world where if you break these unwritten treaties, you get labeled for generations as an oath breaker or a kinslayer or stuff like that. Those kind of things are very important in this world. And I don't read the books and I know these things. So I mean, you don't want those labels because they screw your whole family up for generations, right?
Yeah.
So
and that's why Boris was just like immediately. Boris was immediately like, "No, don't do it under my house.
Yeah.
Take it outside."
He was hardcore. He's like, "Don't you freaking spill blood in my house. Get the hell out of here."
Don't put that juju on me, Ricky Bobby.
And in my head, it's like, and I haven't read the books, like I've said 100 times, but if that was me, and if Eamon, is that the one if he had pulled that in my court, like what happened, I would be Team Rhaenyra after that if I were these guys. It's like, you can't put that on me in my house. There's no way.
Yeah, because Luke was like, Luke was kind of like, nope, I'm not fighting, but he was going to defend himself when Eamon was coming at him.
Taking my eye, man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna cut my own eye out for you. All right, let's talk about the quick episode of How to Train Your Dragon we got to watch at the end of this show. Because I've never read the books, I have no idea what was going to happen. I was on the edge of my seat. You guys can attest to this. I was watching it with Jude and Kadish and JT, and I was like, they're not going to kill him. They're not going to kill him. They're not. And Jude's over there in the corner like, yeah, they totally are.
Stop looking at me and asking questions while we're watching something you don't want to spoil.
I'm like, they're not going to kill him. There's no way. He's not that dumb. He's not dumb enough to do this.
Yeah, Alex is like, they're not going to do that at me. And I'm just like...
So first and foremost, I got to tell you, literally the way they made it like a horror movie at first was so well done. Like, first and foremost, when Luke goes outside, Vagar's gone. Just like, shit. Okay, that's bad. And then when he's flying through the clouds and it's Storm's End, and literally it's like known for.
Oh, it's known for its storms, obviously, because it's called Storm's End.
Wow.
But we get that.
Like, no, F you.
Well, I'm sure
always when he's right in the middle of talking.
I know.
His sweater required some attention, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, he's coming back. Hold on a
He's
sec.
back.
There we go.
There we go.
Hey!
Okay, all right. Where was I? I was getting in the middle of it.
Storm's End.
Sorry about that. So Storm's End, literally.
A whale just
horror
rubbed
movie.
a whale just
I
came in
love
and
the
rubbed
fact
the
that-
cord into the ocean.
Yeah. So Arax, which is Luke's dragon, is a smaller dragon. It's a young, like, teenage dragon. If you probably like maybe 10, 15 years old at most, having problems going through the storm. But I loved when you just saw that silhouette of how big Vagar was passing over. I don't know if it was under or over, but just like it was like a freaking jumbo jet.
Yeah.
And I think initially the thing that people like understand, it really emphasized what Viserys said in the first episode. I love how there's all these callbacks to that. That's just good storytelling. Better than Rings of Power, but whatever. The fact is that he said dragons, the illusion, the thinking that we control dragons is an illusion. And he's absolutely right. Like, you can tame them. You can have, there's a symbiotic relationship, because I do feel that Vagar and Arax were feeding off their riders' emotions. But what I think happened is that Vagar, well, first off, Arax freaked out, was panicked, and was probably feeding off Luke's panic and went to defend him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Vagar, who won, aside from just defending Aemond. I think you got this 181-year-old dragon, had all these battle experience and all this pride and grumpiness. When this young thing was like, blasted him in the face, her in the face, he's just like, okay, that's when I took it personal. It's like, no, like,
Vagar's a salty old gal.
Yes.
So,
and he's just like, I'm not taking that. You're doing
But
this.
when that happened, I get so screwed up with these Aemon, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You can hear him go, no, stop it. Don't do it. He had no control over Vagar at that point.
Yeah.
No.
You got to remember that dragons are animals and they have like their own thoughts and reactions to stuff. But what was interesting to me about this was that, so in the books, they make it very clear that Aemon purposefully killed Luke. And so and that was kind of like the catalyst to start the Dance with Dragons. But in the show, basically Aemon was just, it was an extension of his bullying of Luke, where he was going to scare him and kind of bully him on his way back to Dragonstone. And he had no intention of killing him, but it was his dragon who got pissed off, and he wasn't able to control the dragon enough to keep him from accidentally killing his nephew. And you could see the look on his face after it happened, where he was like, oh shit, this is not good. And it looked like he was somewhat remorseful, because I don't think he wanted to kill him. I think he just wanted to scare him a little bit. And that's one of the interesting things about watching this show as a book reader, is because of the way the book is reading, it leaves so much room for interpretation with the show. And Martin has come out and said the show's canon, right? This is what actually happened as opposed to what's in the book. Yeah. And so when you see the choices that they make and the differences between the source material and the show, you're like, wow, this is a far more complicated story than the books made it out to be. And I really enjoy that.
I'm wondering, since we have this hold on a second, Charles. This unreliable narrator for the books, because it's based off different people's perspectives and stuff. I'm wondering if in the show, we as an audience get to see the actual happening of how this went down. We saw Aemon's regret afterwards, but when he's the only person that was there that saw it. So when he goes back to King's Landing, is he going to own it? And which is going to give the maesters who are writing the story from the books the perspective of oh, he did it on purpose. He's going to go back and be like, yeah, I killed him and I did it on purpose because he was, an enemy or whatever. He attacked me, he blew fire at me, so I had to kill him.
Admitting you made a mistake makes you look weak.
Yeah, so I'm thinking the maesters who wrote the book, which points out that he did it on purpose, I think when he gets back to King's Landing, he's just going to own it, and he's going to be like, yeah, I did it on purpose for sure.
And so. I initially, I didn't necessarily like it at first that they changed that. But after I sat with it for a minute, I was like, you know what? It works in many ways. One, because you have to realize, as skilled as Aemon is in warfare, he's still very experienced in actual battle. I don't think he's actually been in a real battle or actually really killed somebody before, especially on Dragonback. And also given the fact that he lost control of his dragon. Yeah. So I actually really like that nuance where it's just fuck, this just makes it way more complicated and way more tragic, as opposed to him just straight up killing him. And I love the fact that when Vhagar basically, the way Vhagar killed Arax, ripped Arax in half and basically ate Luke.
Yep.
You never heard Vhagar when she came. Literally, she was almost like hunting prey, where she just came up like the freaking Cloverfield monster and just that's what I thought. It looked like the Cloverfield monster, and just boom.
She's like a whale shark just coming up from the deep and just.
Yeah, I just watched the scene again, and Luke is literally the first thing to go. It chomps right where his little seat is, the little harness that he's sitting on. It just chomps that part, and that's gone, and the rest of the dragon just falls to the wayside. It's damn.
Literally, it's I think it was a triple chomp, because it was just first off the initial cram, and then just
it just ripped it apart.
And it's almost disintegrated.
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, it was nasty, and we get to see the body parts floating down to the ground afterwards. And it's all blood spurting everywhere.
This is an interesting comment from Mike Has Bad Knees, where he says that basically Luke wasn't controlling Arax either, and Arax was the one who attacked, first. So it's kind of both the dragon's fault, right?
Yeah. Well, you heard Arax. You heard Luke even saying. You heard him saying, "No, no, Arax, no, Arax." He wasn't saying Dracarys. He was like, "No, Arax, no, no," and Arax clearly went rogue.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
But he was probably just protecting Luke, though. That's the thing. He was feeding off Luke's fear.
I have a question about the last scene when we get there.
We're there right now. Go ahead, take it away.
So when we go back to Dragonstone and Daemon tells Rhaenyra what's happened, how in the hell did Daemon find out what's happened?
That was my question too. The only people who were there was Aemond and Luke.
That's it.
Aemon's the only one left.
I mean, it's like there's a comment in the chat that said Aemon could have gone back and completely denied anything ever happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. Last time I saw him, he was taken off.
Yeah, he was fine. He's fine when I left him.
It's good.
Well, here's the problem though, is that I'm sure that Arax's wings washed up on shore. That's what I'm thinking. That's kind of a part and parcel what happened in the book.
There's dragon parts.
Yeah, some fisherman was off the coast going, "What the fuck is going on?"
And they weren't that far. They weren't that far away from Storm's End. There absolutely could have been people who witnessed this battle of giant dragons up in the sky happening. Yeah, it's not silent. I mean,
it would have been. It would have been. Yeah, it would have been cool if just like for a split second. In the show, we get the perspective of somebody like on a beach looking up and seeing this happen, and like, oh shit, and like seeing the giant, like just that one quick glimpse for like, I don't know, 5 seconds or whatever would have answered this question.
They were above the clouds.
Telephone, teleraven.
I don't think anybody could have seen what happened because they were above the clouds. You ever look up? Can you see anything good's going on above the clouds? No. And
they
was in the middle of a storm.
The clouds for a lot of that, though.
I just, I don't know. It's just a question I have. Is like, it seemed really quick. You know, just like another. You know, we talk about the time skips in this show, and that was another one. It just had me scratching my head.
No, it's a completely reasonable.
Find out so quick.
Yeah, it's a completely reasonable question because I had the same thing. I'm like, how'd they find out about that so fast?
Yeah.
But anyway, we get Rhaenyra's reaction to hearing about Luke's death. Is basically like the cliffhanger ending for the season.
Continued.
Burn them all.
It's on like Donkey Kong.
Game on. You killed my son and during a peace like negotiation. You're done. You're dead. So
we might as well get on.
So let's do our final thoughts on a season as a whole. How'd you guys? So because we all went into this a little bit nervous because of season 8 and how Game of Thrones ended before, and now we get House of Dragons. We're like, oh god, what are they gonna do? So having seen the entire first season, how do you guys feel? We'll start with Vader. Go ahead, buddy.
That's the greatest 10-episode prologue to a series I've ever listened to and watched in my life.
Accurate.
Yeah.
Totally.
Really good, man. I've said this before. Nerd fantasy shows are back, at least as far as Game of Thrones goes. This is the first time in years that I've had a show that I actually anticipated watching every week. And I'm really bummed that it's over. These short seasons piss me off. Give me at least 2 more episodes. You know, I mean, I think the original Game of Thrones was 12 episode seasons, right?
It was 10.
10. Really? I thought it was 12.
Yeah,
anyway, these seasons just feel short, and I don't like short seasons. But that's just because I'm in my 50s and like 25 episode series per year. So it's back, man. Game of Thrones is back. It's back with a vengeance. It's water cooler chat again. It's you know, I went online immediately after I was able to last night, and everybody was chatting it up in their own chats. You know, and it's fun to see. It's fun to see, and it's nice for people like us to just be able to gather and talk about dragons and swords and stuff that we actually like, instead of bitching and complaining about how shows don't appreciate their fans. This hasn't happened with this show, and I hope it really doesn't. And I'm in, man. I'm bummed that it's going to be a year and a half before we get season 2.
Yep.
But I'm looking forward to it already. Looking forward to it already. So thumbs up.
Cool.
Enthusiastically, two thumbs up. Let's go.
Nice. Right on.
2 feet up.
2 feet up.
Let's go, big toes.
Jesus Christ.
2 big toes. There you go. All right. Stay just like that. Stay just like that. All right, Jude, take it away.
Got a hole in that sock. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with Vader. Having seen the size of the book that this is based on, like, they really had their work cut out for them in creating a show about what happens leading up to this war. So this first season, they had a lot of work ahead of them with like the time jumps and the aging up and like everything that happens to get to this point. And they had to encapsulate all of that. And I think they did a really good job. It was really difficult. I know it was confusing for a lot of people with the recast. But now that we're through it, and Vader's absolutely right. This was a complete setup for what's to come, but we needed it in order to really grasp the horror of what's about to come. And I'm super excited. I'm also very upset that it's going to be so long until we get season 2. But by the time we get it, I know they want to do it right. They want to take their time with it. I'm here for it. I cannot wait for all of the dragons.
I want to add one thing. For the first time in a very long time, I finished the season of a show, and I went and I impulse bought the book last night. I don't know if I'm going to read it, but I bought it. It's like $7 for the trade paperback on Amazon right now. So yeah,
Nice.
I figured that was a good buy, so I did it.
All right,
It's huge.
Yeah.
Kadish, you're up next, buddy. Final thoughts on the whole season.
I really like this season. I went into the premiere not expecting much because of season 8, and I'm glad to say that Game of Thrones is back with a vengeance. This was an excellent season. They had a few missteps here and there, but they're all forgivable because the show overall was really good. It is fun how it is basically like a 10-episode setup, kind of like how Vader said. But I'm one of those people who like setup because it makes the payoffs so much better down the road. And one of the things that's really interesting about this series to me is that, so in the original Game of Thrones, if you were a book reader, you knew exactly what was going to happen. And every time Dan and Dave went off the books, went in their own direction and added their own stuff, it never felt right because it was like interspersing fan fiction into brilliant source material. And it just didn't work. The thing I like about House of the Dragon so far is that they're actually very accurate to the books, but they're still able to surprise book readers by adding these little touches that weren't in the books that give it like a little bit more kind of like resonance and layering and surprising stuff. So I really enjoy that aspect of this because, even though book readers kind of know the larger picture of what happens, the getting there is different and it's able to surprise us. And so like that, I think is the mark of a good TV show. So yeah, overall, great first season. Looking forward to what comes next.
Cool. Charles, take it away, buddy.
Matt pretty much summed up a lot of what I wanted to say. I was cautiously optimistic. What I really like, and I agree with Vader in the sense that they didn't blame the fans. They didn't antagonize the fans. They basically tried to court the fans to come back because they know they screwed up with Game of Thrones season 7 and 8. I'll lump that into. They know they screwed up towards the end. And so they basically was just like, hey, we got George involved. They're just doing the right things to let you know we're doing this right. Even so much as what they were originally going to go with, it was really smart. They said, let's make sure that we're doing something that's close enough to the series, not too far removed. Because Blood Moon, I think that was the series that was going to happen during the Age of Heroes and the Long Night. They're just like, this is too far removed. Maybe it sucked. But either way, they went in the right direction with something that was familiar enough and close enough, but far removed enough from the Game of Thrones kind of timeline. And they gave us something that I agree, it's that it follows the major events, but they still are able to color within the lines because there's enough ambiguity and enough kind of mystery, even with what was detailed in Fire and Blood and the other novellas, that they can still go their own way. Do I agree with every single decision made? No. But I thought overall it was it was engaging, it was exciting show that you actually looked forward to. A fandom type show, a fantasy show. And it's just like, God, I forgot what that's like. That used to not be such an issue, but now in the last couple of years it has been. But it's nice that they're doing this right, and I have faith in them. And I think that this was a great setup because, kind of like what Kadish said, this gave you a reason to care about the conflict, gave you a reason to care about the characters. It's not just, hey, let's just throw dragons at each other. If you don't care, then it's just going to be all spectacle. It's going to be like eating a Twinkies. Like, it's satisfying your urge, but it's not going to be filling. This is going to fill you up. This is the salad before the steak. And I feel that like this is going in the right direction in terms of where they're going. And initially, I was also skeptical about them not getting the Black's retaliation, which I won't mention, but the Black's retaliation in the season. But I'm actually glad that they didn't now, because you don't want to diminish or take away from the horror of what happened to Luke. You want that to stand on its own. You want that to almost be the lasting, like, this is the first step, as opposed to having a two-step. You have, this is the first step towards war, inevitable war. And so I felt that I really enjoyed it. I thought it's great, and I can't, it's a long, annoying wait, but I'm really looking forward to what they're going to do next.
I was gonna say my biggest maybe complaint, and I don't know if it's a complaint, is I went through this entire season expecting somebody like really important to get whacked, because because it's a Game of Thrones. You don't get attached to anybody, and that honestly takes a little bit away from this show, because I like to get attached to my characters, but I don't, because I always expect them to die. I was fully expecting somebody like Damon to get it at the end of this episode, or
you were expecting to get Ned Starked.
I was expecting to get Ned Stark. Honestly, guys, I don't give a shit about those two princes. I really don't. That they died when he died in a cool way. He got eaten by a dragon, and I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. But I didn't feel that same visceral gut punch that you felt when Ned Stark got his head lopped off.
Well, like
Ned, you know what I'm saying? There's not the same emotional attachment that I had for that scene.
I think the difference. I think the difference is Ned Stark was essentially the main character of season one of Game of Thrones, right?
Luke, and that's why I felt like Damon or somebody like that was going to get whacked at the end of this.
And I think also another thing, Vader, is that I think probably with you and maybe a lot of people, in typical fantasy fare, Ned would have been saved. Ned wouldn't have died like that.
Yeah.
But this is the Game of Thrones universe. Nope. You play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
I mean, I'm not complaining. This is a great show. I never got that gut punch. Holy shit. I can't believe they just did that moment that I was expecting all year long. And so,
I mean, you should have known it was like Sean Bean. Of course he's going to die. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
He dies in everything.
He does.
Real quick, one thing that we did skip over in our recap was that scene where Daemon chokes Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And she realizes that Viserys never told him about the Song of Ice and Fire, and it was I know that with the leak that came out for this episode online, a lot of like Daemon stans, a lot of girls who were like super into Daemon, were really freaking out about that scene because it was like domestic abuse or like whatever, and they didn't like the fact that they kind of cucked Daemon in that scene. But I thought it was a very interesting kind of like dynamic there where he realizes she knows something that he doesn't, and so like he exerts the only power over her that he has at that moment. And when she realizes that that her father never trusted this secret to him, she kind of loses some respect for him in that moment.
Yes.
And it was a very interesting scene because Daemon, it kind of affects how Daemon proceeded through the rest of the episode, because after that he goes to the dragon and he's missing from like the small council meetings and all this other stuff. So he's kind of like withdrawn from that moment, and you can tell that like she realizes he was doing all this for his own ambition as opposed to actually supporting her. So it was kind of an interesting shift in their dynamic, because from this point on they stop being husband and wife, right? Like they don't actually trust or love each other from this point on.
I wouldn't say they don't love each other.
Well, I mean, not in the way that
she's always loved him more than he's loved her. She was a stepping stone for him. But Rhaenyra has real love for her husband and for all of her children.
And that was a great little subtle thing that Emma Darcy did. I think it was like a scene or two removed from that situation, was the way she just kind of like almost like rubbed her neck, almost kind of like she's remembering what happened. It's kind of like this kind of like she's rethinking that relationship in many ways now. I agree. It's like where she doesn't trust him maybe as much as she used to, and doesn't respect him as much. Because actually even preceding that scene, she, like Damon was getting a little little too much Kanye-fidence, and she kind of had to clear the room to kind of set him straight.
Kanye-fidence? Yeah.
Yes.
Amen is yay.
But yeah, he was getting a little too like, because it was right after, that's what it was. It was after they met with Otto, where Otto left, and she's just like, why aren't we killing that dude? Or he's going, Damon's like, why aren't we killing that dude? And she's like, we can't just do that. And he's like, kind of mouthing off a little bit, and she's like, I'm not going to chastise him in front of everyone. I'm going to clear the room. So she at least had respect for him as her husband to do that. And also the fact that he is a seasoned war vet. So.
All right, let's get over to these super chats. We've got a couple of them here. Thank you guys so much for your generosity. JT, he's at work right now. I don't think he's still in the chat right now because he has some work to do today. But hey, nerds, thanks for the pizza and drinks and crackers. I had a blast watching this with you and Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell is Jude's dog.
He's at my desk right now.
It was great having JT. He's in town for some kind of a seminar for his work, and since he's in Vegas, we're like, why the heck not hang out with the Salty
Come to the
Nerds?
basement.
Yep, come over to the basement. So he got to see us and hang out and watch the finale with us.
JT knows all the Vegas nerds. He was hanging out with the other guys the night before. So yeah.
All right, for $10, did someone say feet? Come on, bro. Come on, bro.
I already did it.
It's $10.
I already did it. That's it.
Actually, people have been asking if Charles's socks match his sweater.
Oh yeah, what kind of color socks do you have on, Charles?
The carpets match the curtains there.
They're just trying to trick you. They're just trying to trick you. Thanks for the $10, Cal.
Thank you, Cal. $5 from Fluffy Panda. Shout out to the casting department. Killed it. Teens killed it. Older replacements killed it. Patty and Matt Smith stole the show. Now fix Game of Thrones. LOL. Yeah. I was talking to Jude and Kadish and JT about this last night, but I do think that the long run for this is eventually going to be to kind of do damage control on seasons 7 and 8. I think they're going to have another show with Jon Snow. I think they're planning on doing that.
Yeah.
And I think the real story about the prince who was promised is going to take place in his show up north beyond the wall. I hope that's what they do. Because I feel like they have to mitigate the damage that season 7 and 8 did. And
I think they wanted to see what kind of reaction this series was going to get first.
Yeah. Yeah. And if it's positive, hopefully they get the memo.
It would not shock me if
that's what Snow's about.
If they did that Jon Snow series and he does end up on the throne by the end of it, so
yeah,
that'd be pretty dope if they did do that. So.
And stops the actual long night.
And none of us actually knows what's happened because the books aren't written, and we can just say, hey man, this TV show the last couple seasons was bullshit.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
universe.
Yeah, wouldn't bother me in the slightest.
Wouldn't bother me either. I'd watch the shit out of it.
I hope George writes that ending into the show and then keeps going for another and releases another book 20 years later. So.
No, I hope he does a Scooby-Doo ending. He's like, that's how it could have happened.
Yes.
Here's how it really happened.
maybe him and Kadish can go get together and they can decide how long it is going to be between.
Yeah. It was all just a green dream from Bran when he was
down
there.
Hold the door.
He's like, oh God, I got to stop that from happening. All right, let's go ahead and sign off then for the day. Thank you all of the guys in the chat and for giving us those thumbs up and super chats. Really appreciate it, guys. Thank you for being here for the last couple of weeks while we cover this show. I appreciate it. I see the similar faces or familiar faces every week. So thank you very much for hanging out with us. This is going to be the last Monday show that we're doing for a while. We're going to take a break probably until the end of the year. So it's going to be a nice little vacation for us not to have to do stuff every single day.
We'll still be here on Saturdays though.
Yeah. All right, Matt, go ahead. Shout out. Say goodbye to the people.
Talking to
goodbye,
me?
People.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Matt V.
Okay. Yeah. Goodbye, people. See you on the podcast, and we'll see you on Saturday mornings.
Right on.
So yeah.
All right, Jude, take it away.
Goodbye. Thank you for being here. Definitely join our Discord if you want to talk more about this show or if you want to talk about any other nerd stuff, saltynerddiscord.com. Join our Facebook group, saltynerdgroup.com, and you can find me on the socials at I am Jude Juju.
Right on. All right, Kadish.
So thank you all for joining us every Monday to talk about this show. It was a lot of fun. This week, we're doing Vincenzo Natali Week on the podcast, where we're covering his Netflix Cabinet of Curiosities episode that's coming out tomorrow with David Hewlett. That was a lot of fun. And then we're reviewing his movie Splice. And at the end of the week, we are actually releasing an interview we did with Vincenzo, David Hewlett, and Andrei Bajelic, who was the screenwriter for Cube. And it's a Cube retrospective where we get like the three main creatives of that movie together. And we kind of talk to them about the movie, and they reminisce about it and share their insights. It's a really great episode. We'd really appreciate it if you guys checked it out and shared it around.
Yep. Yeah, very excited. It was our first screener that we've got as a podcast for Netflix. We got access to the episode before it came out, so we're super excited to have that out. Day that the episode drops, our review will be on YouTube, so check it out and head over to Netflix. We watched 3 out of the 6 or 8 episodes that are out, and I thoroughly enjoyed them. So it's
You're talking about Cabinet of Curiosities.
Yeah, Cabinet of Curiosities. It's Guillermo del Toro's new anthology series on Netflix. It's a ton of fun if you're into that spooky fall season horror.
Very creepy.
Halloween. Very creepy stuff. I love it. All right, Charles, say goodbye to the people.
Goodbye, everyone. This has been super fun. I've enjoyed talking about the show with fellow nerds. You guys are in the comments are fantastic. Thank you for. I forgot the guy from Jedi from Chicago. He or she is just like a freaking wealth of knowledge because they've corrected me on stuff too. So the fans are great. Thank you very much for all your contributions. You can find me on the socials on Instagram, CCEKEKE. Or on Facebook, CCEKK. And you can also find my stuff on Amazon.
Charles, get that sweater in every color, dude.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Happen.
You got the chat all hot and bothered, man. No,
Seriously.
Charles, I wanted to personally thank you for joining us for the Game of Thrones stuff. When I talked to you at the coffee shop and I found out that you were like super encyclopedia about Game of Thrones, I was like, I got to have that guy on. And you've been here every single week on time, ready to roll, even when you're on vacation.
Yeah.
I cannot thank you enough for that, man. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
All right, everybody. Thank you all again for being here, and we will see you for season 2. Stay salty, my friends.